When you're younger, you don't picture like moving back to the area where you grew up. When this house came up, it just felt made for me, and I just fell in love with it. And it just happened to be 2 blocks away from my parents. Moving back home to this neighborhood where I spent so much of my life has been a really special experience. Living in a space that's unfinished has its advantages because we can kind of take our time making sure that the pieces that we bring into this house are things that we really love. That's why I'm okay with some elements of this house being unfinished for now. Hi, I'm Mackenzie Yeates, and this is my home in Toronto where I live with my husband, Ben, our 2 kids, Emmett and Nora, and our dog, Dash. We live in Lawrence Park. There's so many trees, a lot of beautiful old homes, and so all those things feel really special, especially the fact that my parents only live 2 blocks away. We're able to have lots of family dinners and lots of help making this house a home. So when we first pulled up to the house, it was pretty spooky looking. So many cobwebs, I can't even explain to you how many cobwebs. We could tell that it needed a lot of work, but a lot of the original character hadn't been ripped out of it. And so many of the houses that I go into, even if they're historic on the outside, on the inside, they're sort of gray box that we tend to see in some of these flip homes in Toronto. And so seeing the original windows, original moldings, just the front entry space was like something I'd never seen in any other house. And the staircase like felt like something out of a movie where I could just picture the Christmas garland going down the staircase. So this is the entryway of the home, and it was one of the first things that drew me into this house. I had never really seen a house in Toronto, at least, that had this much space dedicated to just coming into the home, and also the grandness of the staircase with the window above it. There's plaster moldings in this room and an original plaster rosette above me. This room originally had some 80s terracotta tile on the floor, and I wanted to find something that felt a little more European because this entryway kind of reminded me of homes in Europe. So I was able to find this concrete tile that's made to look like limestone, and it's all handmade. So it has a really nice patina to it, and it doesn't feel brand new, which I really loved. The items in this entryway came from a variety of different sources. This wardrobe was kind of an essential piece to find because we do sometimes come in with bags and coats and things that we need to drop. So just having somewhere to store that was essential because there's no coat closet in this front entry. It was kind of hard to find something that was the right scale for this room because the ceilings are pretty high and a lot of vintage wardrobes are pretty short. So I actually found this on Facebook Marketplace, one of my favorite finds to date. It fits this entryway perfectly. And then I also have 2 pieces of art near and dear to my heart. This is a photograph that my dad took in Egypt on a trip to Luxor 10 years ago. And Egypt is really important to me because our business, Kotn, is based there. A lot of the work that we do is all about supporting Egypt. And so being reminded of that every day when I walk into my house and when I'm walking around the space is really important. So it's nice to have this right here in the entryway. I also have an assemblage art piece that my dad made when I was younger. It is a piece of white driftwood that he found at our cottage. The powder room's like there's like a Downton Abbey, like under the stairs vibe about it. And so doing the tongue and groove paneling felt right. And it also was practical because there was like a very heavy sort of popcorn texture on all the walls, which I wanted to hide. So we did tongue and groove, painted this sort of like dusty pink color, a really petite pedestal sink, a vintage mirror that I found at the door store, one of my favorite Toronto spots. And it kind of just came together like that. So this archway here was not original to the home, but we did use a reference of an arch upstairs that was original. We wanted to use the archway to sort of define the space and make it feel like a separate room from the other areas that come off of this front entryway. So originally this room was one big living space, and we decided to combine the living room and dining room together in here because we just felt like we wanted everyone to be together when we had parties or even just when we're having family dinners at home. It's nice to have those spaces connected. Part of what I liked about this house was having this space to have people for dinner, have my family over, Ben's family. What's the point of like having a bigger house if you can't have tons of people over all the time? So that was like the draw for me. The nice thing about having our dining room here too is that a lot of time we kind of naturally move into the sunroom after dinner, and the kids like to play in there. It's a really cozy, smaller space, and that's just something that we've discovered as we use the home. So the sunroom is probably my favorite room in the house. It's just a really inspiring space because I can look out, see nature, it's bright. I can have all my design books in there. Feels like my own little piece of the house. So this is the living room. This feels like the most finished room in the house. I started with this rug, which is an antique that I had for the last 2 homes that we lived in, and then we just kind of layered on top of that. So I really wanted to have 2 sofas flanking the fireplace so that you could see the fireplace when you walk in, and it's kind of the focal point of the room. I also have some sentimental art pieces in this space as well. There's a painting by our close family friend, Jeffrey Harrison. I also have a photograph that was taken by one of my best friends, Sarah Blaze, and this was from a Kotn shoot that we did like probably 8 years ago in Paris. I think having some art that feels more modern makes it feel like young people live here. And so I wanted to still have a little bit of an edge in the art that we chose. One thing that really kind of made this room come alive is adding this calamansi tree in the corner. I think having like real plants in a space just adds a lot of romance, makes it feel more cozy in a way. Another small detail that I really loved was the original glass on the windows. And again, this is like usually one of the first things people come and rip out, or contractors tell you, you gotta replace your windows immediately. But if you take care of old wood and glass windows, like they can last a long time and they can be efficient. And they're just so much more beautiful to me because there's that ripple effect in the glass that you see a bit of distortion when you look outside, and also the way the light comes in, it creates patterns on the wall. I find the light to be most beautiful in this house when I drop my kids off at school and come back and it's quiet. Maybe it's just because I can appreciate it then, but also that morning light coming in, that's when you can kind of see some of those reflections through the old glass. So when you go into the back of the house where there's like the butler's pantry, the back staircase, and the kitchen, it really feels like a different vibe. And the kitchen hopefully won't be our kitchen for too long, but I didn't really want to live with it the way that it was because it was super dark. So my father-in-law actually came and helped me paint the whole kitchen like a creamy white. It was just to brighten up the space because we end up spending a lot of time in there.
Can you tell me about the green tape?
I had the idea of putting the kitchen in the room that I'm sitting in right now, which is the formal dining room. This just felt like the perfect space where it was connected to the living room. It was something you would see when you first walk in, and would also allow us to use the back of the house more as a like utility space because that's where we enter from our garage. That was kind of the switch for us where we were like, okay, we could make this into our forever house. So I laid down this green tape to visualize how this kitchen could be laid out, and I'm sitting in my future island right now, but I really just imagine myself like standing out this island, looking out into the living room space where My friends and family are gathered. It's just fun to start playing with the space and figuring out how things could be configured and how it would fit into our lives. The basement was a big DIY job, and that was one that my parents really helped out a lot with. Painting can get super expensive, and so that was something that we decided to take on ourselves because it was like kind of a secondary space, and we knew that it was going to be mostly used as a playroom. So we just ripped up the carpet, painted everything a nice clean white. And so that allowed us to make the basement a space that we could use on our budget, and also a space that I wasn't worried about the kids like spilling or running around doing whatever they want down there. So this is our primary bedroom. I feel really lucky to have such a beautiful space to come to and calm down at the end of the day. And having a fireplace in here was definitely a selling feature and something we wanted to sort of design the room around. So the artwork behind our bed is a collage that my dad made when I was little, and it was in my childhood bedroom. It has like childlike elements in it, like little fairies, but I think it's a testament to having things that are really meaningful and artful in your home, that they can stand the test of time. The artwork also kind of brings together the color palette and adds a little bit of that element of green and gold that comes in through the curtains. And then I have these antique marble lamps that I put green shades on. The lamps are a bit of an off-scale item. They're so large that it was hard for me to find a place for them in the house, but even though they're pretty big for this space, they somehow work, and they just make the bed feel more cozy. The chandelier kind of stands out in this room because it's pretty fancy. I was really unsure about whether I should use this at all, but this chandelier was in the formal dining room when we bought the house. Kind of just put it in here temporarily at first, and then I fell in love with it. It just creates like really nice shadows on the walls, and it's a little bit of a moment of glamour in my bedroom, which I like. I always really liked alabaster light fixtures, and the cool thing about alabaster and why they use it a lot in Egypt for candle holders and light fixtures is because when the light is turned off, it has like a subtle texture to it, but when the light is turned on, it really glows through the stone. And that's what I loved about these sconces. Even though they were super simple, they have that texture and that sort of like moon-like glow. These two chairs came from my in-laws' house, and they were originally wood and upholstered in orange and yellow fabric. I thought they were kind of an interesting shape. I wasn't really sure what to do with them or if they would work, but I decided to just paint them white and have them reupholstered in a more linen sort of neutral fabric. And I think they work well here beside the fireplace, and they're a nice place to drop things when you come in the room. This is our bathroom off our primary bedroom. I decided to go with chrome finishes in here, which was a bit of a different decision, but I just felt like it added a little bit of a contemporary edge to this more traditional room. I don't have sconces in this room yet because I'm waiting to find the perfect glass sconces that I have in my mind. It's an ongoing process of designing a house like this. In Emmett's room, that room is more about like pulling together some furniture pieces that felt special for him at this age, but can grow with him over time. There's a little snail table, and that came from my grandparents' house in Florida. And when my grandparents passed away, my dad was like cleaning out their stuff, and he was like, "Do you want this snail table?" And I was like, "Yeah, for sure, I want a snail table." Things like that like remind me of people that are special to me. And then in Nora's room, I just feel like blue is her color, and I found this wallpaper that has trees with blue leaves on them, and it felt feminine without being like super girly or super babyish. My grandmother, my Nanny B, taught my mom how to wallpaper, and then my mom taught me. So there were a lot of like stories about, well, this is how Nanny used to do it when she was teaching me. So it just felt like a real like passing on of some kind of tradition, which was fun. On the landing on the second floor is a painting that my dad made for our last house, and it just happened to fit like perfectly on this wall. It's an abstract piece, but it's sort of inspired by this like bear in a snowstorm, taken from like the drives to the cottage in the winter and like that snowy kind of Canadian landscape. My dad was a photographer, but like we didn't have any family photos really in our house growing up, and I don't really either, but there's just so many things that remind me of memories or like art pieces that speak to me in a way that's a lot deeper than just like a family photo could. So maybe it feels more personal because it's not so much on the surface. It's something that like has to be decoded or like explained to people. Yeah, everyone's kind of had a part in putting this house together so far. Growing up, our family was always the type that on the weekends we were like doing projects, or my parents were moving around furniture, or at the cottage we were like relaying stones or things like that. And that had a huge influence on me. And my grandparents moved something like 15 times in their life. And that we say that was kind of her career, was like decorating these new homes. She was always doing stuff herself and like distressing furniture. She just had a way of putting things together. And when they would move all the stuff out, you realize that it's just a condo, but she added a lot of magic in the way that she put things together. So that was a huge inspiration, but it wouldn't be fun if I just like hired somebody to do everything. I want to get my hands dirty, and it helps that my parents like to help out a lot too, and so we can do some of these things together, and it's a bit of a family affair.